Hi guys, welcome to part 2 of the Django with JavaScript tutorial series called Social Network Project version 2.0, and in this one we are going to talk about the document object model, and we are going to prepare and present the first manipulation. So we are going to change the hello world text with the use of JavaScript to, for example, how are you doing? And then we are going to proceed and create the first model for the post class. We are going to register it in the admin, and we are going to create first objects. Then we are going to learn how to serialize objects with a single method that I'm going to present. We will learn other ones as well later on through this tutorial series. Then we are going to create the first endpoint, and finally we are going to create views to present the data from the database with the standard approach and the one with the use of JavaScript. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started. Alright guys, so the first thing that I'm going to do is to head over to our base HTML, and I'm going to access this block where we have custom CSS and JS. So as mentioned before, we will have one particular main.js, and let's create it. So in the static folder, we already created style CSS, but we need to have main.js as well. And for now, this will be enough. Later, we will add to this base HTML block scripts for template inheritance purposes, and I will explain why we will do it a little bit later. For now, let's work with this main.js that we have over here. And yeah, right now what we need to do is to head over to our main HTML, and over here we have this hello, and this comes from this particular home view. All right, so as the next step, what we need to do is to work inside the main.js. And before we actually do any coding, let's talk about the document object model. Document object model basically enables us to have a more interactive experience by performing web page manipulation. That means that we can change, add, or delete elements that we see. And whenever a particular web page is loaded, a document object model of this page is created by the browser. We can then interact with the browser from our JavaScript code with the use of this document object, because it contains HTML elements as objects, many properties and methods, as well as events. And some of them we are going to explore in this tutorial series. I'll try to present at least the most important ones. For now, what we are going to do is to perform a very simple console log, and we are just going to put in hello world. All right, we are going to save this main.js, and we are going to head to this main page. So this is our home view. I'm going to right-click inspect. I'm going to head to the console, and over here we see hello world. All right, so let's try to access this document object by writing in our JavaScript code document, but we want to also console log it. All right, so now I'm going to save this. I'm going to go back, hit refresh, and here is this document. So if we open it up, we see the structure of our code. We see all the nodes with the HTML node as the parent node. We see the head, the body, and over here we have this div class container, margin top 3, and hello world. This is basically it. So this navbar is just a comment. We don't have the navbar yet. So basically this is our HTML page, the code of our HTML page described by the document object model. And right now, if we go back for a second and go to this second line of our code, write a dot, we will see a list of properties and methods that we can actually use. So for example, let's choose URL, okay? And let's refresh, and as you can see, we have the URL over here. Okay, so we will talk about this in greater details a little bit later. I'm preparing a course that is almost ready. It's going to be a paid course, but for the members of the Django Ninjas group, it will be absolutely for free. So I encourage you to join the group, and I'm going to do a very basic course in greater details on how this works. So it's going to be called Django with AJAX, and it will be published hopefully within 2-3 weeks. All right, so right now we can actually try to change this hello world into how are you doing. So let's do it very quickly. I'm going to get rid of this console log, and right now I'm going to return to our main HTML in the post application, and over here I'm actually going to put this in a div with an ID. So let me do it very quickly. I'm going to put a div ID. Let's just put in test. And then I'm going to close the div. So this hello is right now in a div, all right? So right now, if we save this and go to our main.js, and let's take a look at the document one more time, console log document. Let's hit refresh. Right now we will go to the body, to the container from our base HTML, and over here we have this div ID test, and here we have the hello world. All right, so as a reminder, this hello world comes from the views. Here we have it, hello world, and let's try to change it to how are you doing. So we are going to grab this element by ID, and then we are going to change the text content. And how to do it? We need to go back to our main.js, and over here I'm going to create a variable called, for example, test, and this is going to be document, and we are going to get element by ID, and we are going to put in test. And right now we have this element, so we can actually console log it, console log test. All right, I'm going to save this, hit refresh, and as you can see, there it is. So right now we can actually change the text content. So what I'm going to do is to put in test text content, and I'm going to set it to how are you doing. All right, so let's save this, let's hit refresh, and as you can see, we have how are you doing. Let's do it, let's change this text right now after 2 seconds. So I'm going to put in set timeout, and over here inside the set timeout, I'm going to paste this test text content is equal to how are you doing, and let's change it after 2 seconds. All right, so this is the time in milliseconds, so 2000 is equal to seconds. I'm going to save it, and I'm going to hit refresh. So we have hello world, and then it changes to how are you doing. All right, so this is what I wanted to present to you in this short introduction. And this is basically what we are going to do. This is how we are going to work. However, right now, let's return to the Django part because we need to create our model. So I'm going to jump into posts. I'm going to open up models PY. And over here, I'm going to create a first class called post. This inherits from models.model, and we need to define some fields. So the first one is going to be the picture, and this is going to be models image field, and we are going to upload it to images. All right, so inside of our media folder, where is media? Over here, we are going to have another folder called images, and there we are going to keep the images uploaded by the user, all right, when creating posts. The second field will be the body. So it's going to be some kind of a description. And this is going to be models. And let's put in text field. Okay, the third one is going to be the liked. So here we are going to keep the track of information on users who like this particular post. So for this, we will need a many-to-many field, and we need to import our user model. So from Django contrib auth models, we want to import the user, and let's pass it over here, and we want this to be default set to none, because first of all, when the post is created, there won't be any likes. Okay, we will add likes when some users will see it and will simply like it. Then we will have the author, but for now I'm just going to put in as a comment because we don't have the profile model created yet. And then we will have the updated, and this is going to be models date time field with author now is equal to true. And I'm just going to copy this, and we'll do a similar for created, but this time we will change auto now add is equal to true. All right, so as the next step, let's prepare the string representation. So this will take in self, and let's return str self pk. So we are just going to see the primary key for now. Then we will have some methods. The first one will be get liked, and this will take in self, and here we will just return the users who liked this particular post. So we need to refer to the liked field and put in all. So we want to have all the users that like this particular post. The next one is going to be the like count, and we can do it as a property. So it's going to be treated as a field. So here I'm just going to put in a like count, and it will take in self as well, and we will return this, and at the end we will add count. Okay, so right now over here we will have the count of likes for a particular post, and later we will add one more. So for now I'm just going to put in how to call it. Let's put in get user liked, and this will return true or false if a particular user simply liked the post or not. So I'm just going to put in self and a user, but for now I'm just going to put in pass, and we will return to this a little bit later. Okay, so right now we have our post class ready. We can actually save this file, jump into the admin, import post. So from dot models, we want to import the post, and we want to register it. So admin site register, and we need to pass in post. All right, so let's save the admin, and let's do the migrations. Okay, so here we have an error because we are using image field, and this requires to install Pillow. So let's do it very quickly. Pip install Pillow. All right, and Python manage py make migrations, Python manage py migrate, and Python manage py run server. So right now we should see our post in the admin. So I'm already logged in, and here are the posts. So let's add a few objects. So right now the picture seems to be required, and let's do this and this as blank equal to true, so we'll make it optional. So let's go back to the models. Let's put to the picture blank is equal to true, blank equal to true, and here to the liked I'll just add also blank is equal to true. So let's save this, and let's do Python manage py make migrations one more time, and Python manage py migrate. All right, and Python manage py run server. All right, so let's try this one more time. And right now we have one bolded field, which is the body. So here I'm just going to put in test post 1, and I'm going to save and add another one, test post 2, and I'm going to save and add another one, and test post 3, and then I'm going to save. And here we have the list of our objects with the string representations as the one that we set, and we set it as the primary key, so we have 1, 2, 3. All right. So as the next step, let's try to list out those elements, and to be more precise, let's access only the body. So over here in our social project, let's see all the posts that we created. And in order to do that, we need to go to the views, and we will work on this home view. All right, so for now it will be in the home view. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to import our post model. So from .models, we want to import post, and I'm going to write a query set. QS is equal to post objects, and we want to get all the posts. All right, so as the next step, we need to pass this query set to the template. So I'm going to delete this dictionary over here, and I'm going to create a new variable. So I have some technical issues with the mouse. All right, I'm back. Sorry for the technical troubles. And I'm going to create a variable context, and this is going to be our dictionary, where I'm going to put in the query set as the key, and the value will be this QS. So right now we can pass this context over here, and we can actually use everything that we define in the context in our template. So for example, let's also keep this hello, and let's set it to hello world. Okay. So I'm going to save this, and now I'm going to jump into main HTML. So we will keep this div for now, and we will create another one with the ID of posts. And I'm going to close it off over here, and then I'm going to create a simple for loop for obj in QS. We want to display the obj, and as mentioned before, we want to access the body. So obj.body, we are accessing the body field. And then I'm going to simply add a break line. Let's save this. Let's go back to our page. Let's refresh, and there it is. And then this hello world still changes to how are you doing. Okay, so this is the standard approach. We can also load the posts with the use of JavaScript. And in order to do that, we are going to prepare a separate view, which will return a JSON response, and then we will simply load the data with the use of AJAX, and we will use the AJAX jQuery method in order to do this. So let's go back, and let's jump into views again of our posts application. And here, I'm just going to create a new view, and let's call this posts view JSON, something like this maybe. And this will take in a request. And what we need to do over here is to return a JSON response. So let's put in JSON response, which needs to be imported. So from Django HTTP, we want to import JSON response. Okay, so now we will have a JSON response, and we will put something inside over here. The thing is that we will also need to serialize our objects, and this is something that I will show you in just a second. But for now, let's just copy this QS. Let's do it without serialization, and let's try to return as the QS, or let's change this QS to data. All right. So what we need to do next is to simply register this post view JSON. So what I'm going to do is to head to the URLs, and over here I'm going to create a new path, and I'm just going to put a comment over here, JSON. So here we will, or I'll put in endpoints. All right. And what I'm going to do is to define a new path, and I'm just going to put in posts JSON, and then we need to import our view. So not only home view will be imported, but post view JSON, and let's put it over here, and the name is going to be posts view JSON. All right. So let's go ahead and save this. And right now, let's try to use the jQuery method in the main.js. So I'm going to put in AJAX. And what we need to do first is to define the method, define the type. So in our case, we want to get the data, so we are just putting get. Then we need to provide the URL. So the URL is going to be the one that we defined a second ago. So let's go back to the URLs of our post application, and let's grab this post JSON. And by the way, I will show you also other ways to do this, but for now, let's use the jQuery AJAX. And then we need to define what will happen on success. So let's put in a function that will take in the response, and let's console log the response. So here we should see what we will return in the JSON, okay, in the JSON view. So we should see this JSON response. And then on error, if we have any errors, we should have also a function which will take in an error, and we will put in console log error. So we will use this all the time. This is going to be the structure for the get, and we will do later a structure for post. So let's see if this is actually working. So I'm just going to save this, and I'm going to hit refresh. And as you can see, we have some kind of an error. If we go to the terminal, we have object of type query set is not JSON serializable. So this is the issue that I mentioned before. We need to serialize our objects. So in order to do this, I'm going to show you the first method, and then later through this tutorial, we will learn two other ones. So the first thing that I'm going to do over here is to import from Django core serializers. And right now I'm going to create another variable called data, and this is going to be serializer serialize, and we are going to put in JSON and pass in this query set, right? And right now we are going to return as the JSON response as the value for the key data, not the QS, but the data, right? So let's save this, and let's see if this is working. And as you can see, we have the data, all right? So let's be a little bit more precise. Let's jump back to main.js, and let's console log the response.data. And let's see what do we have over here. And there it is. So the problem over here is that this is a string, this is a JSON string. So actually to have a JavaScript object, we need to parse the data. So I'm going to create another variable data, and I'm going to use JSON parse, and I'm going to pass in response.data, and then I'm going to console log the data. All right, so now let's take a look at this. Let's hit refresh, and as you can see right now we have objects. This is something that we can work with. So if we access the first object, we have the fields, the model, and the primary key. All right, so this is a big step because right now we can actually begin the DOM manipulation, the web page manipulation. We can actually create a div where we are going to place those objects that we got from over here. So let's jump into our main HTML. Let's create another div. Div class is equal to, not a class, let's do it ID. We will do some class later. And here I'm just going to put in posts 2 for now. And I'm going to close off the div. And this is the place where we are actually going to load the data, all right? So in order to do this, we need to return again to the main.js. And for each application, we will have static files defined already in the first part. But for now, we are just learning. We are having a brief overview on how this works. So we are doing this in the main.js. So let's go to the main.js and let's grab test, not test, but posts div. So we need to get this element by ID. So I'm just going to copy this one. And I'm going to put not tests, but posts 2. And here it will be posts 2. Posts 2. And right now we will have this posts 2 element. So we can actually use the data, get the data, and put it inside of this post. So how to do this? We will use a for each method on our data. So data for each, and then we will grab a single element, and then we are going to simply add this element to our posts. So we need to refer to the posts, post 2 to be more precise, inner HTML, and here we are just going to inject with the use of backticks this particular element accessing the body field. So we need to put in $, and let's put in element body, and let's add a break line at the end. So let's see if this will do the trick. So I'm going to hit refresh, and we have undefined, and this is because we didn't access the fields. All right, we skipped this part. We did it directly on the element, but the element consists of fields, model, and the primary key. So we need to go to the fields, and then we need to access the body. So let's fix this very quickly. Fields, body, and now everything should be all right. Let's hit refresh, and there it is. We have test post 1, test post 2, and test post 3. Okay, so to see if this is working, let's do a set timeout, and let's load this data after 2 seconds again. And let's hit refresh. And there it is. And in the same time, we changed the how are you, the hello world into how are you doing, all right? So as the final step, we can actually add a spinner. So after 2 seconds, the spinner will disappear, and instead we will see those posts over here, all right? So yeah, in order to do this, let's jump into getbootstrap.com. let's in the search type spinner, and then let's grab the first one. Okay, and I'm just going to go to our main HTML. I'm going to add a break line over here, and then I'm going to create another div with the ID equal to spinner box, and I'm going to close it off, and I'm going to paste the code from getbootstrap.com. So let's just reorganize this really quickly. We actually don't need this. Let's do it like this. All right. And as the next step, we actually need to grab this spinner box. All right. So sorry about my voice. I'm talking too much today, probably. So let's grab the spinner box as mentioned before, and the main HTML file is saved. So in the main HTML, I'm going to create another const variable, spinner or spinner box. Let's do it spinner, and this is going to be document get element by ID, and let's put in spinner box. All right. So right now we will see the spinner. Let's have a look, and there it is. The thing is that we would like to hide it when our posts are loaded. Okay, so the break line didn't seem to work. Let's go to main HTML. Where did I add the break line? I added over here, and let's actually reorganize this a little bit. So the break line will be added over here, and the spinner box will be added below the posts too. Okay, let's try it one more time. Sorry about this, guys. Okay, now we have the break line, and okay, whenever those posts are loaded, we would like the spinner to disappear. And in order to do this, we are going to use the class that we've written down in part 1. So we will go for a second to our style CSS file. Over here, we've written down this not visible class. So let's add this not visible class to the spinner when the data is simply loaded. So in this case, we have this set timeout, and in the set timeout, not in the for each, but below the for each, in the set timeout, let's write down spinner, and here we will put in a class list, and we will add to it the not visible. So this way, to the spinner will be added not visible class, and it will be added after 2 seconds. So we can see if this is working. Let's save the main.js file. Let's hit refresh, and the spinner is over here. And then instead of the spinner, we actually see the data. The spinner simply disappears. And briefly in the same time, we have the hello world changed to how are you doing. And I think we can finish off over here. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. We started really slowly, but it will get more interesting in the upcoming parts. So hope you guys will stay with me and join me in the next parts. Wish you all a great day and hopefully see you soon. Take care and bye-bye.